Hi everybody, my name is Nelson Everhart and I'm a composer for video games, mostly known for a game called Wizard 101, which I've been writing music for about a decade now, since about 2007. I've been getting a lot of questions and it turns out that a lot of people have some of the same questions about what I do and how I do it. So I thought we'd address them here and do a video on frequently asked questions. All right, the first question here is the music from a real orchestra or is it sampled? And what tools do you use to make music? Well, my studio is just here in my house. It's not much to look at, I guess. It's my iMac, and I have a MIDI keyboard. I have a Universal Audio Apollo Twin audio interface that I use to get sound in and out of the computer. And then I have 3 Thunderbolt hard drives that have my sound libraries on them. So all the processing that I'm doing is all happening in the computer. All the sounds are coming from the computer. Now, if I ever want to record something live, I can do that just by plugging a microphone in or plugging whatever it is into my Apollo, and I can record live audio like that. So sometimes I record vocals like I'm doing right now. Other times I'll record a guitar or a trumpet, and I'll plug those into the Apollo Twin, and I can play them live. But the majority of the music that I write is all sample based. So I have a large sample library, and I just trigger those by playing the MIDI keyboard. Don't tell show. So this application here is called Pro Tools, and this is the DAW, the Digital Audio Workstation that I use. There's a lot of other applications that you can use, and I said this before, and I'll probably say it again, that it doesn't, I don't really care what tools people are using as long as they know how to use them well. Pro Tools, I teach this at Cincinnati State College currently, so I know it pretty well, and it's just the tool that I'm comfortable working in. So when people ask, is it a real orchestra? Obviously, it's not a real orchestra. You can see the tracks right here, but it usually winds up being a blend of samples and things that I record. So the cool thing about using a DAW is that you can have real audio tracks, and then you can also have samples and MIDI down here. So MIDI specifically, it stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It's really just a way for different pieces of software or hardware to kind of communicate with each other. So it's just a way to transmit, these are the notes I'm playing, these are how hard I'm hitting them, this is how much modulation I want on that particular note. You can communicate that from one piece of hardware or software to another piece of hardware or software. So I have the MIDI data here, and as far as Pro Tools is concerned, these are just the notes. That's just the notes that I played. As far as what sound it makes, what it has to do is it takes those notes and it actually plays them through this plugin here called Contact. So this is a software sample environment. This is where the sounds live. So those notes get played through these individual patches. So what I have on that string spiccato track, that gets played through this sound here. So that's the MIDI part of it. The audio part of it, all I have to do is plug in a microphone or plug in an instrument like a guitar to my Apollo, and I can get sound into Pro Tools as well. So these are audio tracks instead of MIDI tracks. So here it's actually the audio itself and not the piano notes that you're playing to get it. So being a pirate game, I wanted it to sound piratey. So I hooked the microphone up and just recorded myself doing the yo-hos in here.
Yo, ho, yo, yo, ho, ho, yo, ho, yo, ho, ho.
I just recorded myself doing this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 times. So there's 8 recordings of me just on top of each other.
Yo, ho, yo, yo, ho, ho, yo.
So one of the tricks I like to use is just basically to sing in different voices here. I come up with the, different personality for this guy. He talks, more nasally. This guy's more throaty. This guy shouts. This guy's kind of shy. And it just helps to differentiate the different voices and sound more like a real choir. So these tracks here are just played the same as the MIDI tracks. And we hear this audio playing on top of all the MIDI, which is getting converted into audio. a stuck note in there, but you should get the idea. Obviously, this isn't a real orchestra, but it does give you an idea of how we kind of build it up. All right, next question. Can I buy an album, or do you have any sheet music? The very short answer is no, and the slightly long answer is because when I write music for Wizard 101, that music is owned by KingsIsle. So they would have to decide to make an album or sheet music available, and to date, they haven't really seemed like that's something that they're into, which is completely their prerogative. They're a video game company, not a music company. It would be great if they would, but you can't always get what you want. You could always contact them and let them know that you're interested, and it might be something that they consider in the future. Now, do you have any sheet music? You've seen how I compose music. I'm playing it in live, so there's no sheet music that I'm generating as I do it. So for me to offer sheet music, I'd have to go back in and I'd have to figure out what I did and prep the sheet music and make it look nice. Because right now it probably doesn't look that good. Pro Tools actually does have a, what do they call it? The score editor for this. And this is what it looks like, just raw, without anybody kind of going in and fixing it. Now, if you're interested in sheet music, I do have a couple solutions for it. Keeping in mind that the music that I offer has to be original. I'm working on a project called The Lost Levels. I haven't had as much time to work on it as I wanted to, because I started it right before my wife and I had a daughter, which is very, very time consuming. These are tunes that are kind of in the spirit of Wizard 101 and the other stuff that I write. And you can actually download a play along track, which is the music minus the melody. You can play along with the sheet music in whatever key the instrument you play happens to be in. So I've got sheet music in C, B flat, E flat, and bass clef. So there's a couple users doing some really cool things on a website called MuseScore, which is where you can share notation. They're doing their own arrangements of Wizard 101 and Pirate 101 tunes. I'll put links to all these down in the description. So a user by the name of Blaze Red Flame has a couple pieces notated for piano. There's another user in MuseScore, the Baba Yaga, which is a reference to the Polaris character in Wizard 101, which is really cool. And the Baba Yaga has sheet music for a few different pieces, including the Pirate 101 Cool Ranch battle theme. And another guy by the name of Brandon Waters, who goes by with the handle Dithdu 2. Dithdu 1 was taken. And you can see it's scored out for all of the different instruments. So, whatever instrument you play, you can probably get started right there. And then if you check out on YouTube here, there's a user by the name of Texadon the Blue Kitty, who has an amazing a cappella, so just voices, Wizard City arrangement, just different themes from Wizard City, and some amazing, some really, really good work. He has also posted the SATB arrangement of that on MuseScore, so you can check that out as well. I always encourage people, if they're looking for music and it's not there, learn how to lift tunes, learn how to transcribe them, learn how rhythmic dictation works. You learn so much that way. I learned a lot doing transcriptions in college, and sometimes just do them for pleasure because I'm that kind of music geek. Next question is, how did you get started writing music for video games? It's a combination of a lot of preparation and a bunch of networking, and also being in this right place at the right time. So start at the beginning. I've written music almost as long as I've been playing music. So I'm spending a lot of weekends at home by myself in my basement writing music and recording stuff. I did a little independent cassette album, that I tried to sell, and didn't sell very much, but I learned a lot in putting all of that stuff together. So it was the beginning of the internet, and I had kept in touch with some folks from high school, and one dude was working at a video game company doing, he was a graphic artist, and he was doing the user interface elements for a company called Gray Matter in Toronto, where I grew up. And I just started chatting with him. I'm like, you work for a video game company? That's amazing. I'd love to do that. And he's like, really? I was like, oh heck yeah. So when a position came up, he remembered that I was looking, and he said, hey, we have a position. Are you interested? I'm like, absolutely. So I interviewed with the one sound guy that they had there, handed him my album and handed him all the other stuff that I'd been working on. And he was like, okay, well, you've been doing this. And that was it. Now, the way that I did it in 1991 might not work for you today. So the things that I think that you can do are to always be working on things. If you want to be a composer, you need to be composing. Write a bunch of stuff, get a demo reel together, work with other people. I used to go to local colleges into the film department and put up posters looking for films to compose music for. I did the same thing and wrote music for high school like dance classes where they wanted some custom music. I wrote music for cheerleader squads and mixed music for cheerleader squads. If you're interested in doing that thing, you have to do it, and that helps it helps your experience level, and it helps get your name out there, and it helps it helps build your network. You never know. Like, I didn't know I would be doing writing video game music specifically, but it just worked out that way. So I had to be ready to go that direction. And when the time came, when I got the call, I was, ready to do that. So never feel like what you're working on is too small, because it's all going to go to either your experience level, your networking, or, just getting your name out there and getting you hooked up for the next job. So the next question that I get asked a lot is, where do your ideas come from? Which is a crazy question to try and answer. It's like, where do babies come from? I mean, nobody knows, right? It's just a mystery of life. I'm joking. I totally know where babies come from. I have one. I think how you have learned music is a big part of how ideas occur to you. So I was always, I'd learn a song on the piano, and then I'd just try and break it apart and see, why does this chord sound like that? What happens if I play this chord in a different inversion? What happens if instead of playing that note, I play this note? What happens if I ornament this melody kind of a different way? It's just, throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks. I may be misattributing this. I think it was Bernard Herrmann who did the music for a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's films, who said the muses learn to arrive on time. Somebody asked him, how are you creative? Isn't music just like an inspiration thing? Don't you have to be struck, from the heavens with a golden idea before something happens? And he was saying basically, composition can be a job just like anything else. It can be, you're not necessarily inspired when you have to write something. So you have to learn to kind of kickstart your inspiration. And a lot of that for me is, messing around, but then it's also listening to other things. A lot of times the developers I work with will send me tracks that they think sound kind of like what they're envisioning the track to sound like. Or maybe there's an element of it that it's like, hey, can we use the strings from this and mix it with the brass from that? A lot of times the eventual pieces don't wind up sounding anything like the original inspiration for them. Somebody asked me, do you write the rhythm first or do you write the strings first? The answer to that is it just depends on what it is. Sometimes, I set the rhythm up and then start to mess around on top of that and try and find, a brass part or chords or a melody. Sometimes the melody happens by itself. When I was writing the original Wizard City melody, that theme occurred to me while I was outside on a walk, and I had to run home to try and get it record it before I forgot all of it. And then it kind of developed into something bigger than just that melody. Sometimes I've been in the shower. For some reason, when I'm driving, my brain's pretty bored with driving, so it's thinking about music stuff. And the voice memo on my iPhone, I'll just pull that up at a red light and I'll sing the idea into it. And then when I get home, try and turn that into something interesting. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it turns out to not be a very good idea. It's just something that sounded good at the time. So I think as long as you're causing your brain to think musically and to think in musical terms, then those musical ideas are going to occur to you sometimes while you're, sitting there doing music. But other times, in the car, in the shower, on a walk, rowing a boat, trying to think musically. Well, what goes in your head comes out your mouth. All right, so that's it for this video. If you've got any other questions that you'd like answered in a future video, please leave them in the comments section and we'll work on FAQ number 2. For now, I'm going to go back to looking at some of the process and some more of the things that I'm doing. Leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll keep these things going. All right, thanks, guys.